Hey, everyone. Hope you're having a great day. So, I just got done listening to a podcast from somebody I follow that I think is amazing. Her name is Christina Montalvo, and she is a lot like me. She's a fitness coach, but she also does business coaching for fitness folks. And I'm not an active client of Christina's, but I follow her and I do like some of her philosophies. We align in ways like we both believe, Black and Brown lives matter. She's very much aligned on the social justice issues like I am and things like that. So I resonate with a lot of her messaging. And today she was talking about on her podcast about how, from a coaching perspective, but also from a consumer perspective, about how when you are a consumer and you hire a coach and for whatever reason, you don't show up to the program and that you paid for. And then at the end of the day, you're disgruntled because you didn't show up and now you have a bad feeling or it wasn't a good result for you because you didn't engage. And that can go a couple different ways. Like, for example, you may buy into a program, and I've done this in the past as well, that you get into it and you're like, what the hell is going on here? Like, this is not what I signed up for. You feel like it's taking you far away from yourself. You feel like that it's not trauma informed. It's giving you like a bad vibe. Your feelings are being bypassed. You're not being seen or heard, right? Those types of things happen. And a good coach is not trying to make their framework your framework. Meaning, I'm not trying to tell you this is how I got strong or this is how I lost weight, because my body, my lifestyle, my habits, everything about that is so vastly different from other people, right? So for me to say like, this is how I'm doing it and you can do it too, really is not a helpful like dialogue, because everyone's different and everyone's got different things. Now, what I will say is if you are working with a coach that is trauma informed, that is giving you options in terms of how you can communicate or how you can approach the program and things like that. Like, it's not like live all the time, right? Like, you can catch replays or you can do it on your own time when it's available for you and when it's accessible for you. Maybe you have an extended amount of time to complete it or whatever the case may be, right? They're giving you options and they're not making you do something you don't want to do. And then you're not showing up. Then to me, that's a possibility of exploring for yourself. And like Christina talks about in this podcast episode, why, right? Like, if you found a coach that you feel like you connected with, you feel like is seeing you and hearing you, but you're not communicating or you're not doing the work, then you have to ask yourself, why? Why is this happening, right? And that could go down so many different paths, and it could be something very, very deep that you may need to work through with like a mental health counselor, because if it's something that has to do with like perfectionism or people pleasing or boundaries or anything like that, that's a whole different show, right? And that's not something that I can really give you a solid advice on, because I'm not equipped to do that. I am trauma informed, but I'm not equipped to like counsel you, right? Or life coach you. So that's another option. You could always find a life coach. So thinking about if you're somebody who coach hops, but you're not seeing things through, and it's not because the coach isn't hearing you. It's not because you feel like you're being bypassed, or you feel like I said, there's not options or things like that. You have to kind of look inward, which is really vulnerable and it's very hard to do. And I've done it myself, and say like, shit, is it me? Like, am I not doing something? Am I not communicating? Am I not putting this as a priority? Because eventually, and Christina talks about this, which I really loved, was that she says, the honeymoon phase wears off. And it does. I've had people work with me for a few months and then they skate, and I'm always like, but, because we were just starting to get somewhere, and then like they skate and I'm like, eh. And sometimes those reasons are extremely valid, right? They're financial, they're, family, their timing issues, things like that, right? And before I started Vitality as like my signature program, a lot of it was, people, and this is why I'm transitioning to that more so as a staple, is because people would cancel on me a lot because life, work, kids, all that stuff. Like, and that's life. It's going to happen. And I'm not going to get mad about it, but I'm always like, crap, because I program for people based on when I'm going to see them. So if like I had a whole program out for that week to kind of be equaled out, well, now I have to go back and reconfigure it. But with online training, I don't have to do that because you're doing it on your own time. Just an example. So yeah, so I say all this to say, sometimes it's the coach. Absolutely. Sometimes it's the coach and they've sold you something that's not what you signed up for, or they sold you something out of shame and manipulation and privilege, and it's not what you needed. And sometimes the person who's ghosting or what have you has to look inside and go, ooh, I have a pattern of doing this. Like I have a pattern of finding really nice people who want to help me, and then I'm like not showing up. And why am I doing that? And where is that coming from? It can be much more involved, right, than I can do in a video. But just a little bit of context I thought was really good to kind of throw out there and see. And again, I've been here. I have ghosted on things before and been like, why did I do that? And it was most of the time for me, it was not having it be a priority. And I think maybe one time it was it was taking me far away from myself and I wasn't feeling seen and heard. And that's another completely valid reason. So I would always say that when you are going to sign with a coach of any kind, business, fitness, oh my gosh, birth coaches, doulas, things like that, come equipped with your own questions. Kind of like if you would go for a job interview. I don't know if you do this. I did this when I was interviewing for jobs back in the day. Like I always had questions to ask the person that was interviewing me after they were done. What's the trajectory of the position? Where does it go from here? I would have a laundry list of questions from a book called What Color is Your Parachute? I can't remember the name of the author, but I would just jot down the questions from that. And when I got my last job, I interviewed with my boss, or he was my boss later. And I asked him all these questions and he was like, wow, you've got a lot of questions. And I'm like, yeah, because it's important, because you're investing. If they give you the offer, or vice versa, if you're hiring somebody and you're going to pay them a good amount of money, like you want to make sure that it's going to meet you where you're at. Truly. Like they're not just dishing that out as a bunch of BS. Like it's actually a real freaking thing. And it's completely valid to ask those questions. Hey, if I go on vacation, what happens? These are questions that I would ask me if I was going to hire me. And I made an FAQ, so I try to get in front of these things, but that's not always going to happen. What happens if I don't log my workout? What happens if I don't reply back to your emails? These types of things. It's like, tell me how you need to communicate and I'll communicate with you. But it's really hard when people aren't giving you the lead or the leash or whatever you want to call it to meet them and say, well, what do you need from me? Because I'll meet you, but you got to tell me what you need too, or like what you think would work best for you. So just a couple of different thoughts, and I wanted to kind of throw it out there. I think it's important information. I think it's valid. And I love that Christina brought this up. And again, this isn't blaming either side of this particular situation. Sometimes it's the coach and sometimes it's the client. And so sometimes sometimes they just don't gel, and that happens too. So it's just a matter of making sure that everyone who is in the relationship is doing what's best for the client, and that the client is respecting and trying to work with the coach and not against them. But again, in a way that the coach is also making sure that there are options and there's availability and they're open to what the client has to say. So I hope that wasn't too much. I just wanted to give a little bit of context around it. And thanks.